You're listening to Gaming Buzz, your source for information and entertaining discussions about video games for video game enthusiasts. With your hosts, Jacob, Darien, and Christian, all huge nerds who can never have too many games. Now, let's get this started.
Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of Gaming Buzz.
My name is Jacob, and I'm here with Darien.
Hello.
And Christian.
Hi.
So a few episodes ago, when we were talking about the games we were playing that week, I mentioned I was playing Fallout 3. You guys remember that?
Yes, I do.
Well, after weeks of binging the game, I beat it, and it sucked. The game was amazing, and I loved it, and I couldn't believe that I hadn't picked it up beforehand. I mean, I had years to do it, and I never did, and I love it. But the ending of the game was terrible.
Don't spoil it for me, please.
I won't give you any spoilers, but long story short, the game ends when you fight a dude, and it takes one bullet to kill him. And it was the most anticlimactic thing I've ever done in a video game. And it amazed me that even nowadays, there are really, really bad video game boss fights. So I thought it would be a really good idea for us to take an episode and go and talk about some really bad boss fights and get the anger off of our chests and talk about some good ones that made us happy and kind of compare them and show what we like to see in a video game boss fight.
Yeah, that does sound like a lot of fun.
All right, so we've got a nice list. We're each going to rage a little bit and be happy a little bit, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I got a lot of things to say about some of these bosses.
It's kind of funny because a few weeks ago I was like, why do they always call them bosses? But usually it's because they're above little tiny enemies that are usually below them. So I just got that like a few weeks ago.
Right, normally they're the kingpin of some sort of thing. I know that's kind of general, but I'm going to go right into one of mine. I'm going to start with a good one and then go to a bad one, okay?
Sounds good.
Blow me away, man.
So I'm going to start with the highest high, my favorite video game boss battle ever. And this one's from Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, and it's the boss fight against The End. The End is a old man, like an old man, like
he's nearly dead?
Like he should be dead. Something's keeping him alive. I don't know what, but it's something.
Life support.
Pure ambition.
Maybe he's also a world-renowned sniper, because every Metal Gear Solid game has to have a sniper. And the reason why I like that fight so much is because it's very, very challenging, but it's also unique because there are several different ways you can beat him. The most common way is to have a sniper battle with him, where you're sniping at each other and trying to hit each other first, and then each of you moves to a new location and you keep sniping each other through a giant, thick, dense forest that is actually really a large area. So it's really cool like that. Or you can avoid his sniper shots and run towards him and just start shooting him at point blank. Or you can do my favorite method. Turn your PlayStation 2 off and wait 2 weeks and turn it back on. And the End, no joke, will have died of old age.
That's hilarious.
Wait, you serious? They give time and program that into the game.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid, especially Metal Gear Solid 3, have a lot of really weird ways to do things, and that one has to be the best of the bunch.
That is really funny.
You'll sneak up on him, and then you'll go to his perch, and Snake will touch him on the shoulder, and he'll just roll over. And then Snake will go on his codec and call one of his comrades and be like, he just died. They're like, what, did you shoot him? No, he just died of old age. I'm like, well, I guess everyone has their time.
I think the banter in the Metal Gear series is probably some of the funniest in all of gaming.
Absolutely. The writing in that series is wonderful.
Isn't it because Kojima wanted to be a director, right?
Hideo Kojima, the creator of the Metal Gear series, wanted originally to be a film director. So he studied script writing and filmography and cinematography and all the other ographies to learn how to do that, and then ended up working as an intern at Konami. And, well, we now know how that ended up working out for him. And now look at him. Moving on from a boss fight that's amazing and has multiple different ways to beat it, to one that, although it's very well known, I didn't really like, because there's only one way to beat it, and it's too simple. I'm talking about fighting Bowser in the original Super Mario Bros. And the way you beat him is you jump, and you jump over him.
Or go under him.
That's true. I guess you have two ways, but really all you have to do is move from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen by jumping. And yes, that's the core gameplay element of the Super Mario Bros. Series, but it doesn't feel epic. And I don't think it helps that you have to do this over and over again throughout the game.
I mean, basically the entire level, you are just dodging his fireballs and stuff. So maybe that's the boss fight, and just leaping over him is like the climax of the boss battle, and then touch the axe.
I don't know why, but Bowser fights just feel very boring.
I think it has to be, well, in the first game is because, you face him pretty much 8 times in a row. It just changes every single time.
And to realize this is from 1985 too, so...
Yeah, it's not a very fair criticism, but it is still true.
I have to agree with you, though. I find Bowser to be very boring.
There are actually not very many good fights against Bowser. There are a lot of games where they just do this thing a certain number of times and you win. Especially recently, I think Nintendo's starting to get it. Super Mario 3D World had some really creative Bowser fights, and I think they're finally trying to really make them climatic and big and crazy, and it's paying off.
And I also remember in Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS, there were some fights against him where you'd climb towers and stuff, and he'd be chasing you through the level and destroying it, and it's pretty challenging.
Definitely a lot more interesting than jumping over a dude.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, why don't we move on to your picks, Darien?
Well, my first pick for a good boss battle involves Mario, but instead he's fighting against Donkey Kong in the original Donkey Kong on the Game Boy from 1994. The game has a bunch of distinct areas and levels, so at the end of every one of them, Donkey Kong has some kind of area-related kind of thing to do to you. At the end of each of the things, you face him, he throws barrels at you. Even though you have to only throw 3 at him per stage, some of them are pretty challenging because of layouts. Like there's jungle and there's a ship which is super tall. You have to climb up to the top of the mast and then hit him with his barrels. Sometimes you get a barrel all the way at the bottom. You have to climb at least 10 platforms up to the top and throw a barrel at him. But the best boss fight in this game, and it really impresses me also, it's because it's on the Game Boy, is Donkey Kong grows really huge at the end of the game. And this was before I had internet, so I couldn't look up all these different things or how to beat him. But he turns really big and he slams his fists and he knocks a bunch of items out from the sky. So slamming your fists equals raining items, which I never got. But you had to practically ride on his fists to get on his nose and hit him with items, and it was pretty intense of a fight, and I think it's really good.
Now, one thing you didn't explain, how does DK get huge?
He uses pretty much the opposite of what the mushrooms were in the game, because there were these mushrooms that they'd shrink you to a really tiny size, but instead he takes like 6 mushrooms and he turns like super gigantic. And then when the end credits roll, it segues into Super Mario Land, because you see the question blocks and stuff, and it's kind of funny.
It's funny, people talk about Mario games and shrooms, but literally in order to get better, Donkey Kong just went, I'm going to take as many shrooms as I can.
Pretty much. But he throws the ones that make you tiny, and I've never seen another Mario game that done that. And a game that's totally not related, but I have to say the Burnout series have kind of bosses in it. Burnout is a racing game where you're pretty much trying to destroy your opponents, or there's a mode where you try to crash and destroy as much traffic as possible. But there's these face-offs where you face a car that's special or has some special more boost or fast boost or something. But these face-offs are really lame. You're going against a car, you get way ahead of it, and then all of a sudden the AI rubber bands, and the thing takes off way in front of you. You have to spend a lot of time trying not to crash, and you just got to try to pass them over and over. For the first game that had it, you were racing 1 or 2 laps, but it is really lackluster.
How did I know you'd be bringing up a racing game somehow?
Oh, don't worry, I have quite a few more. Which is kind of odd because most people don't really think boss fights or boss battles when it comes to racing.
Christian, your turn to get some bosses in.
All right, I'm just going to start off with my first PlayStation game, Pac-Man World. Now, Pac-Man World, what boss could it have? In the space levels, you get in a ship, and then you just go into like a side-scroller shooter going up, and you gotta kill a bunch of Galaxians, okay?
From the game Galaxia.
Yes, which is obviously a reference to that game, which, good job, Namco. But when you get towards the end, you find out that not the person, but the alien that's doing all this is the alien mothership. You gotta shoot the 4 eyes, and you gotta avoid its lasers, its bomb galaxians, and claws. And doing that boss fight is kind of hard for me because you gotta like press the square button to shoot and then avoid all the projectiles.
I really love how Namco does represent their games, and they really like to reference them in other games. It's really cool how they do that. Like, of all the companies that do that, they stick out to me the most. I mean, how many Namco games have there been that haven't had a rally flag in them?
I haven't counted.
And it's funny because in Ridge Racer, a lot of the sound effects, they use like Pac-Man music and a lot of their arcade music, and it's kind of entertaining to see that.
It's definitely really cool. Now, what about your bad game, Christian?
I also have a Super Mario Brothers pick. It's from New Super Mario Brothers 2 for the 3DS. When you know how Nintendo has been doing all those giant Bowser fights lately? This one, it was very boring to me. You know, you fight Bowser in a bridge and then he falls. Okay, classic. But then the cage goes up where the princess is, and then Bowser turns giant because of Namek. But this time you gotta like pretty much avoid all his projectiles and jump, and then just avoid the fire and just keep going up platforms till you get to the top.
Ooh, exciting.
To be honest, I was like, oh, this again.
You know, it's really ironic that the new Super Mario Bros. Series is starting to get really old.
I kind of want to rebrand it Super Stale Brothers.
You know, they have introduced a few new concepts in it, but not nearly enough. New Super Mario Bros. U was basically a copy-paste of New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And they keep doing that, and the series is getting really boring.
Well, the series was meant to reboot the 2D platformer that we all loved, how Mario started, but then, you know, it just got boring.
I think Nintendo saw how much money they were making off of the earlier New Super Mario Bros. Titles, and they wanted to continue that success, but they didn't know what was making it successful, and they were scared to experiment with it, because what if we do something wrong and we don't get that crazy amount of money for the next one? So they all ended up kind of being the same.
Yeah, I'm tired of seeing the level gimmicks where in Super Mario World, you could bring an item or a power-up to a different level, and you could get different benefits from it. Like you could bring a cape to one level and you could just go into a different part. But in these games, it doesn't matter what power-up you have. If you use the power-ups in the level, that's pretty much the only beneficial way to use them.
So going back to Jacob, what's your next best boss?
Oh, you guys are going to love this one. Master Hand.
Which one? Are you talking about the one from Smash 4, or are you talking about the one from the GameCube or the N64? Which one?
They're all kind of the same. For anyone who doesn't play Smash Bros., all two of you, when you beat the classic mode of the game, essentially the story mode, unless you're playing the adventure mode in one of the good Smash Bros. Games, you have to fight a giant hand as the final boss. And there have been some variations on it, but for the most part, what you have to do is just wail on the hand as it tries to use its special moves against you. And unlike most Smash Bros. Battles, where you have a percentage meter and you have to try and knock it up by doing damage and flinging them across the screen, this boss actually has health, which sounds like something pretty ordinary, but for Smash Bros. That's unique, and it really is a fun way to just end your run.
It does quite show off how much skill you have.
And then if you're playing on a hard enough difficulty, you get the extra challenge of having a second hand join. But this one's a little crazy. Literally, his name is Crazy Hand, and he's just kind of nuts. Always twitching and using weird random attacks. It's definitely kind of odd.
Well, it's interesting though. Because I fought against Master Hand in the other Smash games also. When they're both on the field, like they have combo moves, which is very cool.
Absolutely. They definitely play differently, but also work really well together, which makes them really interesting.
And I like how sometimes you can like kill one off, so you could be fighting just Crazy Hand. So that's pretty fun too.
But definitely really good bosses that I like to fight against over and over and over again.
It's so simple too. It's just hands.
Now going to a boss that I don't like fighting over and over again, but I have to. I'm talking about the Imprisoned. This is my bad one. It's from The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, and it is a boring boss fight. You have to fight this giant creature, which sounds epic, but you just cut off his toes. And you don't even get to like see most of him while you're fighting him. You just focus on his legs and cut off his toes. And you have to fight him while he's trying to climb a hill. It's the boringest boss fight ever. And you have to do it 3 times.
Wow.
They're kind of weird looking toes. And it's kind of like gross that you're cutting off a dude's toes. But why is that the way you beat him? Why can't you like climb up him Shadow of the Colossus style and have to like stab him with the Master Sword? No, you just cut off the toes.
Now, why you gotta fight him 3 times?
Well, without going into too much detail, he's constantly trying to break out of the seal that the gods of the Legend of Zelda universe put him under, and he escapes. And every time he tries to escape, you have to seal him back in. And he manages to escape 3 times during the story.
Lackluster.
The only variance is how fast he goes. The more you do it, the second and third time he moves faster and is a little more aggressive. The second time is actually tolerable because you get help from another character from the game who shoots a giant catapult and you get to control it. But the third time you're like, oh, I get to play with that character again and do that and it's going to be fun. Nope, it gets destroyed right before the boss fight starts, so you have to do it the boring way.
That boss battle just blew my mind in the way that makes me just say, Nintendo, what are you doing?
Well, at least the catapult seems fun.
Yeah, but you get to use it for maybe 30 seconds.
Well, hooray.
It's just one of those issues that Skyward Sword has. The game had so much potential, but it also has a lot of really stupid stuff that makes it painful to replay.
I have another racing game on my list.
You have another racing game?
Yeah.
When I asked you to do this episode, I said, hey, be creative. Really reach out there for something interesting.
Well, did you think of racing games?
No.
Well, then I have something else.
Fight, fight, fight.
All right, let's duke it out.
Where's the ding ding?
Let's settle it in Smash.
Yes. Well, in the really good boss type or kind of a boss setup is in Need for Speed Pro Street, where they have a bunch of different kinds of events. Like you have grip races, which is just like a regular race around a track. There's like Drift Race King, and they're called Kings, which basically they're the master or the best AI in that event type. So you face against them, and there's a pink slip thing going on with it that, well, the game doesn't really want you to lose against them, so you don't lose your stuff against them, or I didn't experience that personally because I always beat them if I did, or if I didn't beat them, I'd just turn off my console and just act as if it never happened.
Really?
Yeah, because
Wow.
that game does some pretty bogus stuff to you if you lose. But my favorite boss in that is the drag one, because...
Wait, there's a dude looking like a lady racing a car? That sounds awesome.
No, it's not a dude that looks like a lady. It's a lady that looks like a lady. The person for the drag races, which I think is probably the best done one in the game, since it's just racing in a straight line, they could focus on the AI and the shifting times, and if they use like nitrous or not, so they get a boost. And it was just really crazy because when you got done beating each of them, you'd get their car. And personally, I love Ford Mustangs, and she had one that was just like really souped up and it looked really cool, and I won it. And that was one of the most rewarding boss battles I've had in a game.
I would have liked it better if it was a drag race and not a drag race, or a drag race. That would be really cool.
Yes. But in the Need for Speed series, not all their bosses are that good, because the final boss race, quote unquote, is in Need for Speed Underground 2, where it feels like the biggest disappointment because, first of all, you can control the difficulty in the game all throughout the game. So you can play it all on easy, all on medium, or all on hard. But you get to the end of the game, and I've had harder challenge trying to beat like regular grunt races or just regular outruns where you just meet up with another car, you just find them and you flash your headlights and go on a race, and then you win, like unlock different parts and stuff that are only special to racing these cars out on the free roaming map. But the boss race is not really even a special car. You're racing against a 2004 Pontiac GTO, which is probably, I think it's one of the last years that Pontiac even made cars. You start out by the airport, which then there's a stretch of highway, which is pretty boring because the highway doesn't have that many cars on it. So you're driving through a long highway, then all of a sudden you go underneath a bridge, and then you go through the city for probably a good 45 seconds. I mean, the game takes you from one part of the map all the way to another part of the map, and you do a few laps around the whole entire map, which is a few hundred miles of racing, but they take you through some of the most boring parts of the town or part of the city that you've already raced on through the entire game, and it takes 1,000,000 years to do this race, and it's just boring.
Hey, Darien,
Yes?
you talking about racing games is really grinding my gears.
Then you should shift.
I don't know how to drive. I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
I don't really know how to drive manual, so...
I just tried to make a pun and you went too far. You took it too far. Let's talk about some games that aren't racing games. Please, Christian, save us.
Jack and Daxter. That's my next pick, man.
Wow, screw segues, am I right?
But one of the best boss battles is in the second village. In the second village, there's a giant blue... I don't know what the heck to call it. I know they say his name, but he's a giant, okay? He's throwing in, he can summon from his hand giant flaming boulders and hit the village.
How unique.
Yes. So what you do is collect a bunch of power cells and then activate a machine that lifts up a boulder that's in the way. When you get to him, it's you versus him in a lava pit. And then you're just jumping on platforms and trying to avoid him. And then when you get close to him, there's some yellow eco, and eco is the energy source of the game. And what it does is lets you shoot projectiles at him. So you shoot him a couple times because he's trying to summon a giant boulder towards you. So then you just hit him, the boulder falls on his head. You got to do this 3 times. The epic thing about it is that every time you hit him with the giant boulder, there's less platforms, so it gets more intense.
Kind of like the intense part of the game where you have to try to catch that weird cat lemur thing. That was horrible. Was it as intense as that?
No. Wait, what?
Speaking of horrible, Christian, what's your bad game?
Link versus Ganon in Twilight Princess.
I can relate.
Well, Ganondorf.
Right. That's so confusing. Is he Ganon? Is he Ganondorf? We don't know.
All right. Spoilers here, but who really cares about a 2000-ish game?
2007.
7, sorry. Get over it.
That was 9 years ago. If
It's going to get re-released soon, yes.
Yes. Oh no, is it like a re-spoiler then?
Sure thing.
It's an HD spoiler.
There we
Yeah.
go.
You fight Ganon in the castle first, and he turns into a giant monster. But then he runs away, escapes. And I'm like, why? This is the best final boss ever. He's the giant beast form. You're fighting him as Wolf Link. But then, like I said before, he escapes. And then you chase him on the horse, and you got Zelda's with you, and she shoots the holy arrows. Or light arrows, I'm sorry. And then you just fight him one-on-one after that. And it's very anticlimactic, to be honest. You just swing your sword and just hope to hit him. Or you can just use a fishing rod and just screw with him.
Yeah. I have 2 big issues with that boss fight. One, and when you're doing the horseback section, first of all, that's pointless, but they really did it to show off, ooh, look how cool horseback combat is in this game at the very end of the game. But getting Zelda to actually shoot him is a lot easier said than done. And it really makes you question, hey, why don't you just push her off, grab the bow and arrow, and just do it yourself while on horseback. And then my other issue is during the one-on-one sword fight, the way that you actually deal damage to Ganondorf is you mash the A button.
Oh no.
And it's not for a little while, a couple seconds, or a quick time event or something. You have to mash it for 5 minutes straight, and it hurts.
Yeah, I played it on the Wii version, so you gotta shake that Wii remote.
Waggle, waggle, waggle.
Exactly.
I've played both versions to completion, and it's actually a lot more difficult on the GameCube version because you have to constantly mash the A button using your thumb, and your thumb just starts to hurt really bad.
Maybe you need to lift some weights with your thumb then.
Or get a turbo controller.
That would actually really help. However, this boss fight does have one saving grace, and you already mentioned it, the fishing rod.
Yes, the fishing rod. It's freaking ridiculous. The great king of evil gets distracted by a fishing rod, and you just smack him.
I think Ganondorf is ADD.
It's like, why does he have a fishing rod? Oh, look at it swing left to right.
I want one too. Maybe I'll stop being evil and start just fishing.
I'm imagining Ganondorf like sitting in a canoe at the fishing hole with like a fishing hat on. He's just like, I'm not getting any bites today. And he just like turns into a giant beast and starts freaking out and tips the boat over.
You know how there's Link's crossbow training? We can have Ganondorf's fishing pole training.
No, Ganondorf Fish Simulator 2016. Is it bad that I'd actually buy that?
I would
That's
probably buy it.
hilarious. So, Jacob,
Yeah.
tell me what's next.
I'm going to rage a little bit.
Don't rage yet. It's your good game, unless you're gonna rage about how good it is.
Why not? One of my other favorite boss fights of all time, Goat, from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, before they screwed him up in the 3D re-release. How this boss fight works, you've got this giant four-legged goat / horse / dog / something creature,
Beast.
and he runs around a giant circular track, and you have to chase him as a giant spiked ball of a Goron. And that's all you do. You roll around and you go off jumps and you have to land on him with your spikes, and that would really be painful. And you just do that for a while, and there's challenge in it because you have bombs that he throws out to try and hit you, and are they stalagmites or stalactites from the top? I can't keep track. They're giant Sharpie things from the ceiling falling down on you. And then you also have to watch out because you have a magic meter, and if it runs out, you lose your giant spikes, and then you just roll into him and get thrown off and hurt.
That sounds challenging, actually.
The odd thing is, it's really challenging the first time. Pretty much by the second time, you can beat it in like a minute and a half if you know what you're doing. I've actually beaten it in under a minute.
Good job.
You know, talking about boss fights that you can beat in under a minute, let's talk about one of my favorite ones to hate, Sonic vs. Shadow. And I have to call it that because you can play as either character and fight the other. This is in Sonic Adventure 2, and you have a dark story and a light story, and each character fights the other one several times. So you could be either one and fighting the other. But this is the fight where you're in the jungle and you're on this little platform and you just have to duke it out with the other one. And the way you win, mash the homing attack button. Just A. You win.
Hey, mate.
One of the most comical boss fights I've ever seen. Because not only can you win it super easily, if you stand still from the beginning of the stage and don't touch anything, your opponent, your rival, will just walk around you in a circle trying to find the best way to jump at you in homing attack. But because the AI is so bad, they just run for a little while and then stop, and then run for a little while, then stop, while taunting you like, I'm gonna get you.
Come at me.
I'm the real hedgehog. It is the stupidest boss fight I've ever seen. And I hate it, but I also kind of love it for how stupid it is. It's played off as being serious with heavy music in the background, some nice rock music. And I'm infuriated by how lazily done it was. But it's so funny.
That's a reason why I don't really get into Sonic, is because of how they lack on a lot of things. They're like, oh, this is really serious grind story. Like, yeah, this is going to be really crazy and intense. And it's just like, do you realize you're just a bunch of rodents?
Whoa. Let's not get the Sonic fanboys angry.
Oh, yeah.
We do not need that.
It's a little weird because they should have kept it lighthearted like the originals, and then they're like, grittiness, we need that.
Christian, you've played Sonic Adventure 2. What did you think about that fight?
The cutscene that's after it's ridiculous. They're both exhausted. I'm like, but I just pressed the A button 5 times.
Yeah, they're panting and hunched over going, this is so much work. I'm like, you ran around in a circle for 12 minutes. Maybe that's why you're exhausted.
And I just pressed the A button.
Now, Darien, please tell me your next one is not about cars.
It's not. It's actually a Pokemon battle, and it's not a champion either. It's in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, but this one really shows off in Platinum because they did enhance the AI and they did do a few revisions. It's the battle against Cyrus, and he's the Team Galactic leader. And if you don't know the backstory, he's just this ruthless guy who wants to destroy the world. And he's pretty much one of the darkest written characters in Pokemon.
He is. He basically is like, I don't like people. I'm going to destroy the earth and rewrite it in my image.
And he doesn't care about anybody. Like, he doesn't care about his grunts. He doesn't care about his equals. He's just like, I don't care. Everybody's dead. And
so basically, he's a dick.
he is. But the thing is, his battle reflects it. The AI is probably the best I've ever seen in the series. I actually died against him multiple times, and I actually trained very hard and very well before I even got to him, because I always pay attention to training equally, and lots of people don't. And if you don't do that, you're going to have a struggle against him.
Well, hold on a second. You said die. You don't die in Pokemon.
You just faint.
You just faint.
Oh, it feels like you die because you have to like run all the way back to him, and it's pretty ruthless. And I'm not a fan of usually saving before a very important event. Like, I'll save often, but if I'm like going before like a big battle sometimes, I don't save before a team leader, even though it could be pretty detrimental. But I like to keep Pokemon as realistic as possible for myself. But this boss battle, you're fighting against his Pokemon, and he actually switches his Pokemon out, and he actually tries to actually beat you with the elements and using his strongest moves and his strongest Pokemon against different types. And it actually is a really long battle, and the music is intense. Like, it is probably the best team leader music in the series.
Does he use revives?
He does not use revives, but
then Buzz is a scrub.
well, I don't think any AI in the game uses revive, and that'd be really cheap. Because you could be fighting in the Elite Four, and then there would be a leader. Or
I think Cynthia actually uses them.
She uses
champion.
She uses full restores, but she also is pretty good, but not as good as Cyrus. And the thing with Cyrus is that you get to fight him when you don't really have legendaries, or your legendaries aren't really trained yet, but you have to fight him with brutal force and actual training. I'll segue into a series that has nothing to do with Pokemon, but it goes in with The Legend of Zelda. I'm starting to see a trend, but this wasn't really developed by Nintendo. It was just oversaw by them. Hyrule Warriors. The boss battles in that game, oh my god. I like Dynasty Warriors, and I like that kind of style of gameplay, but Hyrule Warriors is just, like, the bosses feel really weird and cheap. Like, you have to try to micromanage everything too. Like, oh, this place is getting overrun. Go chase that thing down. You go and you take care of that, and you go back to the boss, and you wail on the boss for a little bit. Oh, we need your help in this base. You go to a different place and you do it, and like that feels like the whole entire game is just running around, trying not to focus on what you're mainly trying to do, and then you don't do the main thing. And the boss is not really the main thing either. It's just a little element in the level, but it's a really strong opponent, and you beat on them, and then all of a sudden you have to try to do something else in the level, and it feels like a lost cause.
Yeah, Hyrule Warriors was overall kind of meh. I always love, though, how it's like, urgent, go to this fortress and protect it. And you run over there, and both sides are just kind of standing there.
Yeah, and it's like, what are you guys doing? And then I leave it, and then it's like, they took our base, and you have to go back, and you have to fight it again. You're like, you guys weren't doing anything when I got there. And then now when I leave, you finally go and do something, or my guys don't do anything, and the other team or the other side is like, oh, we're going to go beat you now. That game just really royally made me mad, and I actually got some DLC because it wasn't really my choice, or I made the choice because my brother was like, oh yeah, you should really get the DLC for this game. It really wasn't worth it because it's really challenging in the wrong ways.
It doesn't help that the boss battles are really, really repetitive, and you have to do them all the time.
Go and whack this thing a bunch of times. Go and like throw bombs at this. Make it fall down. Hit it again. Go and do a weird task that doesn't really matter, but if you don't do it, you'll lose this match, or you'll lose this whatever it's called. I don't even know what to call these things. These events. It's just a game that I like to rage on because I spent time beating it, and the co-op is really unnecessary but necessary at the same time, and it makes it easier. I'm not a fan. And Christian, what is your good game?
All right. Now, you guys know I'm a Mega Man fan, so I put a Mega Man boss in this list.
Oh, wow. You're really breaking new ground here.
This is going to be Mega Man X5. The most memorable moment of any Mega Man X game, that's my opinion. X versus Zero or Zero versus X, whichever character you picked. Depending how you play the game, there's different endings. Depends how good you are at defeating the bosses also, because sometimes it affects how the story ends up being at the end. So besides that, X versus Zero is one of the most intense fights ever, because you have that very rock. We're gonna get it because Mega Man was named Rock. Huh?
Intense.
Yes.
Yes.
Where are all these tents that you guys are talking about? Keep saying the game's intense. I don't see any tents.
Cause you need to imagination. It helps.
But anyway, the game has been building up to that moment pretty much. X versus Zero, and then when you beat Zero, or if you're playing Zero, you defeat X, you get a cutscene saying oh, blah 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 blah. But that's spoilers. Who wants to see that?
Yeah, we don't want spoilers for a game that was released 20 years ago.
Exactly.
But most people really don't really see the end of the game unless they're devoted.
That is true.
You know why that is? Mega Man's hard.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about hard. The stage has a bunch of spikes everywhere. There's wires that you gotta climb into, but there's enemies on them. There's falling platforms, and all that builds up to you fighting Zero or X.
And you beat him, right?
Of course I did. If you're fighting against X, he uses his ultimate armor and all the special attacks from Mega Man X4. If you're fighting against Zero, he uses a bunch of sword-based moves, and his Giga attacks is easy to dodge. But if you're playing the game in hard mode, that health bar is huge. As in, you can theoretically say it's tall as the building in Chicago, the tallest building in Chicago.
Are you talking about the Chrysler building?
Sure thing.
That's in New York.
Sure thing, man.
Landscapes. I don't know.
Dude, you're talking about the Sears Tower.
Yes, that's what I meant to say, because I don't know my buildings.
Or the runner-up, we can talk about the Trump Tower, which is...
Anyway.
Small loan of $1 million.
Let's not turn into political buzz. Come on, guys. We've been over this before.
I need to find a political game and just talk about it.
In the next game for the bad boss, it's an enemy versus the hero, and this is Uncharted 2. Jacob, you told me to play the game, and it's awesome and all that, and then it was pretty much me running and shooting blue stuff, and then until he took enough damage, and then that's it.
We were hanging out together, and it was when you were playing the game. I said, you're going to love it, but as a warning, the final bosses in Uncharted games are normally pretty bad. And you're like, yeah, I played Uncharted 1. It was pretty bad. I'm like, no. You don't understand. Yeah, you literally just run around avoiding the dude and then shoot the blue stuff, the blue sticky stuff on the wall that for some reason explodes. You don't even actually shoot him. You just shoot the walls.
And pretty much shooting him takes a whole clip out. So it's better to shoot the blue stuff and throw grenades.
The worst part is when you shoot it and you're a little too close and you die from exploding the blue stuff. Right when you're really close to beating him, and you're just like, I hate my life.
Yep. Or if you're too close to him and he grabs you the first time, he throws you a little close to him, and then but if you're next to a wall, you hit the wall first. But then he kind of because this happened to me, he grabbed me again and threw me much further away, and I died. I was like, gotta do this all over again. And I died plenty of times just trying to avoid him and not getting blown up by the blue liquid sticky stuff. Anyway, enough about me and my bad game. What about Jacob and his good game?
This is actually the last good boss battle I have to talk about. And this one, it's the very first enemy in the game. The game is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which is not a real word. I checked.
I've actually started playing that game. It's pretty fun.
Now, you will know, then, that the tutorial mission ends with you fighting a Metal Gear Ray.
Yep, that thing's pretty cool.
A giant mech that has one goal, and it's to beat you. So what do? You run down some buildings, defying the laws of physics. You cut it into little pieces, and it keeps coming back. You basically, from beginning of level to end of level, have to turn it into little tiny 1-inch cubes. This thing that's as big as a skyscraper.
It was pretty entertaining to slice it up.
And the music during that fight sets the tone for the entire game. That this game is going to be epic, it's going to be crazy, and there are no limits.
I can see that. It is pretty fun. I love that game.
Now, I only played a little bit at your house. I never fought one of the bosses. But, geez, you're right. That game is intense.
I mean, it's weird because like most games tutorialize, and like take Pokemon, the first thing you fight, normally another cute little tiny creature, and it's super boring and slow. Or Super Mario Bros, it's a Goomba. No, Metal Gear, you get to fight a giant mech with your sword.
And you get those great long cutscenes.
Yeah, Metal Gear is a great movie.
It's a movie with game that interrupts every once in a while instead of a game that has little movies that interrupt it.
Pretty much. That's part of the reason I love it. Now, my bad game, my last one, also a giant creature. But this one is from Borderlands 2. And it, unlike the last one, which was at the very beginning of the game, this one's at the very end of the game. Not counting DLC, this is the last thing you fight in the game. And it is a giant lava golem-y creature, and you just have to shoot it a bunch. And it sounds like it'd be a cool fight.
It sounds hot.
Oh, please.
Thanks.
But it's not that fun because it doesn't take skill to beat. It doesn't take reflexes to beat. You know what it takes? Time.
Time and bullets.
Just time and bullets. Because he doesn't do that much damage to you. The only danger he has is knocking you into lava, which slowly drains your health. That's really all he can do to damage you. And you can like if you're playing co-op, it's super easy because you can just heal each other. So really, the only thing that it takes is time. And the first time I went and beat it, I was playing with one other person. We were doing a 2-player run. And neither one of us fell from losing our health during the entire fight. And it took 45 minutes.
Jeez.
And, it didn't feel epic. It felt just like a chore.
That's why I don't feel like I want to get invested in like first person series, because that seems to be a running theme.
I don't know about that. But in this case, they really screwed up. It was not fun. 0 out of 10. Will not do again. I'll just stick to playing the DLC for the game, because Borderlands 2 has the best DLC ever made.
Are you sure about that?
I am sure. Have you ever had a parody of a tabletop RPG in your video game?
No.
There you go. Assault on Dragon Keep is the last DLC pack that was released for it. And you know how it ends? With fighting a giant dragon. And it does feel epic. And it does feel cool. That should be the final boss of the game.
They're like, you see what we did wrong? Let's make it right.
Yeah, and you also... it has a lot of really funny jokes if you've ever played games like Dungeons and Dragons, showing my nerd cred here. And you also get a special reward. A gun that shoots out explosions, that shoots out swords.
That's hilarious.
I love it.
Sounds like a headache to me.
Yeah, avoid playing the end of the main game and just play Dragon Keep. The best part, once you beat that giant crazy dragon, there's you save the princess who, spoiler alert, do not listen to this part if you have not beaten this DLC yet.
Okay, bye, see ya.
Turns out to be a pony. A pony that was a joke from the main game. And you can feed it rare materials to make it poop out weapons. It's that kind of game. What are the last 2 boss fights you want to talk about, Darien?
My last good one is Resident Evil 4. Now, that game is chock full of a bunch of very unique enemies, and it's interesting how they do it because some of the bosses or what seems to be bosses, turn into regular enemies that you'll see on a regular basis, but when you first see them, they will make you poop your pants. Like, there's the guy who has a sack on his head, and he has a chainsaw. He is probably one of the most scary enemies. Like, He felt like a boss because when you first approach him, you shoot him a bunch of times. You're like, why is he not dying yet? And you put like 2 or 3 rounds in his face or in his body, and he doesn't fall down.
And then it gets really scary when he actually catches up to you.
And he corners you. That's the worst thing, because once he corners you, you're gone, because you get stuck between like the wall and him. You try to get past him, he's just going to slice your head off.
Yeah, he is a one-hit kill. He brutally decapitates you, which is one of those things that, like, I'm surprised wasn't censored.
And the funny thing is it was on the GameCube as an exclusive for a while. So that makes me laugh a little bit. And then it was ported to a bunch of other systems and really great ports. My final game for bad bosses, even though I love this game and I love the subject matter, it's Brutal Legend.
Oh, Brutal Legend.
It's one of those games that's like a love story that goes wrong. It's like, I love metal, and I love like the type of metal they put in the game. They put the metal that was from the 70s and 80s mainly. And there was voice actors. There's Jack Black is the main character, and then you have a bunch of just metal guys.
Like Ozzy Osbourne is in it, and he's awesome.
He's hilarious. He has some hilarious dialogue. Then you have Rob Halford, the metal god. He's the main antagonist, and it's hilarious because he flies around with his hair. But I never got to see much of this game. I've gotten really far on PC because it makes it much easier with keyboard and mouse. But with controller, this game is really difficult. One of the problems I have is this game is an RTS, but you don't know it is. It's like a tower defense RTS kind of game, but you're playing one character and you're trying to direct a bunch of different units to go to different places. But it's kind of difficult because you have to be standing where you want them to go, get them to go there, protect it, or whatever they need to do, and you have to hit everything. And the boss battles were usually like you go up to a giant stage, and there was like a music stage, not like a stage because it's a big open world. But you had to go and fight these enemies, and it's really awesome. Like, the game isn't really that annoying because it has a huge soundtrack, and it's a bunch of music that I just dearly love. And usually it plays basically like the area that it's based on, which the game is based on a bunch of big, like it's based on album covers, and depending on which area you're in, that's kind of the music that'll play during that boss battle. And they seem to hit you in waves. First wave, easy. Second wave, hard. And then the third wave is almost impossible most of the time because you have to prepare for it during the first wave. And it feels like a really broken game that should have been fixed.
Yeah, I wish Double Fine, the creators of Brutal Legend, had a little more time with it. But from what I understand, they were heavily rushed to get it out, which is really a shame. It seems like every time Double Fine really wants to make a masterpiece, some corporate issue comes up that forces them to get it out at not as good as it could have been. The other big one I can think of, Psychonauts, which is one of the best games ever made. They had to make a lot of changes to the game because the corporate executives didn't want this in the game or that in the game. And
it bothers me that they don't let Tim Schafer have all of the creative genius that he thinks of in what he wants to make. And he's been around since the point-and-click days, which is quite amazing.
Yeah, he worked on the Monkey Island series, which is awesome.
It's really funny. Christian, what are your final bosses?
All right, my final bosses, for the good one, Shovel Knight. You know, at the beginning of the game, in the first level, you fight this dude named Black Knight, you know, the rival to Shovel Knight.
Racist.
It's not racist. It says in the title, in his name.
I always wondered why they didn't call him, like, Spade Knight. That would have been cool.
Yeah,
shovel versus a spade.
Pretty much, that's what it really is, actually. You know,
Pickaxe Knight. Do they have that?
No.
They should do that.
Have Mole Knight.
Well, if they're listening, they need to make one of the knights have a pickaxe.
Anyway, at the beginning of the game, you fight Black Knight, you know, basic. He pretty much all the moves are like yours. The only difference is he can charge up a giant fireball and you just shoot it back to him. All right, and then you play through the game. You fight all the bosses, all the other knights, and then you get to the Tower of Fate. Which, spoilers, that's pretty much where the game takes, the final moments of the game is. And then you fight Black Knight again. But this time, it looks like the Enchantress, which is the main honcho of all this going on.
She's the boss.
Well, she is the final boss, but we're talking about Black Knight here. Black Knight gets enchanted by the Enchantress.
Should have seen that one coming.
Yes. He gets, like, wings and like black wings. Haha, Black Knight, black wings, whatever.
Butt wings.
Butt wings. Yeah, you can name yourself.
We talked about in Shovel Knight, there's a cheat code you can use to turn pretty much any noun in the game into butt. So, butts.
Yep.
He gets enchanted with butts.
So anyway, he grows wings, all his attacks, you remember that fire blast that he shoots at the beginning of the game? Now he shoots even more. He gets meteors fall. All his attacks are like super OP, and then you just have to jump on him with your shovel and then shoot back the fireballs. The music is epic, and then after you beat him, he's just like, go fight the Enchantress, blah blah blah, and you're like, okay, well, you're just gonna go fight the Enchantress, bye.
So what do you like about that boss fight?
It's just fighting him again, but even more epic form. You're like, oh, it's Black Knight, all cool and chill, and then he's just like gets transformed. And what I like the most is actually the challenge, because it's not easy to beat him because he's always flying in the air. So you gotta wait until he lands and hits the meteors that are in the ground towards you. For a very bad boss, we're talking about transformations. This is a great segue. In Resident Evil Revelations, you get to the finale. You fight this dude that injects himself with, like, the virus of whatever the heck's going on there. And he transforms himself into the weird monster dude. And he can teleport everywhere, and it's hard to hit him.
I never beat him because of that.
And it takes forever to beat him. It's just like, it's exhausting, though. It's very exhausting, to be honest. Because then, I died a couple times fighting him. And I was playing on very easy. Sorry, but I just want to play a game for fun.
You're a scrub.
Well, I didn't beat him, and I was playing on normal.
Yeah, the big thing is he pretty much requires you use the dodge roll mechanic to beat him. But, like, the rest of the game, you don't need to use it, and the game doesn't really, like, tell you how to.
You kind of forget about it.
So it's weird that, like, gameplay element that they pretty much abandoned, they bring back just for that and force you to use it.
The game is great overall. It's just this boss, and that's just like, you gotta do different things. And then he teleports all over the place. That's actually very annoying.
It's like the game is like Resident Evil 4 Boat Edition.
That's what it seems like. It's pretty weird because, like, a lot of the gameplay elements are straight from Resident Evil 4, but even, like, the story's pretty similar. And even that, you've got your final boss is just a dude, and then he transforms into a monster thing. That happened in Resident Evil 4 with its end boss, too.
They had a few of those in Resident Evil 4.
And it was boring there, too.
Well, he isn't the final boss, but technically he is, because at the very end, you gotta shoot, like, missiles to this giant tentacle beast. But I don't count that as a final boss, because it's just like, shoot a missile, dead. And that's it.
Well, hopefully us going over boss fights that we really liked and boss fights we didn't was educational, maybe for some aspiring game developers out there who are looking to make games. Now you can know, hey, here are what people actually find fun about boss fights, because clearly some developers haven't gotten that yet.
What they find fun sometimes might not be fun for others, but it's subjective.
I suppose so. These are all just opinions. They shouldn't be treated as fact. Well, that's all the time we have for this discussion. We're going to end, like we always do, by asking our hosts, what game are you playing this week? Let's start with you, Christian.
Well, I'm going to be playing, wait for it.
I'm waiting in anticipation.
Ooh.
I'm going to just be playing some Mega Man.
Which one?
After a while, I actually kind of lost count of what game I was playing, Because I put them all in order. Like I took them out and put them like in the shelf, and I'm like, wait, what game I was playing next?
Have you played Mega Man Powered Up yet?
Yeah, I have.
But recently.
Recently? No, well, yeah, pretty much.
They're all just blurring together for you.
I'm like, because after a while you're like, everything looks the same.
I know what you can play this week. A Mega Man game that's a little bit different. Mega Man Soccer.
Oh, well, of course.
Or The Misadventures of Tron Bonne.
That's not a Mega Man game.
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
You told me it was.
Shut up.
Don't lie to me.
Okay.
He's getting mixed signals.
Yeah, I guess I'll play some Misadventures of Tron Bonne with you. I'll go over to your place and I'll teach you how to actually beat those levels you don't know how to play.
And then we can play Mega Man Soccer?
Yes.
Woohoo!
And what are you playing, Darien?
I am playing The Last of Us on my PlayStation 3. And I've been playing it for a while. And that game's hard.
How hard?
Like, I got stuck for a while, and I get really mad, and I put it away for a while, and then I go back to it, and I'm like, oh, I'm stupid. I should have snuck there and shot that. And it's pretty scary, like, just the way that they present it.
I like The Last of Us. I don't think it's the critical masterpiece, best game ever made, but I do think it's a good game.
I really like Ellie's personality because she's just so snarky and says just the most unnecessary of things all the time. But I just love the intro of the game. I got through that, and they make a character matter to you, even though you only see them for a little while, and they just get you with it. I mean, I'm not going to do any spoilers because I just want people to play this and see for themselves. But it was a really tear-jerking moment right at the beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm. That game definitely has some really good writing and presentation. I think it falls a little flat on the gameplay side of things, but that's really just my personal opinion.
I just get through the gameplay to get to more of the story.
Well, I can't wait for its sequel, The Fast of Us.
Oh, you stole my joke. You stole my joke.
Wait, I need in on this.
There was a long-standing rumor that the fourth Uncharted game, we know this not to be true anymore, was going to be a kart racer because there was a pattern with Naughty Dog games. The first Crash Bandicoot game was primarily in the jungle, as was the first Jak and Daxter game, and the first Uncharted game. When the second ones came around, the second Crash Bandicoot game was pretty much exclusively ice-based. And the same thing goes for Uncharted 2. And then 3's come around, and they're all in the desert. And the fourth game for each of the series, for Jak and Daxter and Crash Bandicoot, were kart racers. So people were thinking that Uncharted 4 would be a kart racer, cleverly called Uncarted.
I would buy.
And Christian and I were on the bus a couple days ago, and we were talking about this. And I'm like, hey, they should make a new Last of Us and make it a kart racer. Call it The Fast of Us. I can't believe you stole my joke.
Hey, you didn't copyright it.
I will.
Dun, dun, dun.
You're going to get sued, Christian.
You can't.
Ooh. Wait, you're both the creative entities, so. Ooh.
Exactly.
So you know what I'm playing this week?
What is that?
Nothing.
Is that a game?
No. I'm not playing any video games this week. You want to know why?
Why?
You're retiring.
No. I recently picked up an entire complete collection of every single Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z VHS tape ever released. Almost the entire series for both of them, all on VHS, because I'm an idiot. But I'm going to have a Dragon Ball marathon over the next week, and that's pretty much all I'm doing.
Well, I can't wait for all those fillers.
Yeah, there's a lot of filler, but you know what? I really like it, and there'll be lots of screaming and lots of 9000s and lots of stuff like that, and it'll prepare me to actually watch Dragon Ball Super, because I have not stayed up to date for it.
I haven't watched it either.
You know what I'm going to do, Darien?
What?
I'm going to punch you in the face and knock you out, then give you a sensu beam and pretend it never happened.
I didn't understand that because I had never watched Dragon Ball.
It looks like you have to come over for a Dragon Ball marathon. Oh, yeah.
But I don't want to watch people talk for a half an hour.
That's why you watched Yu-Gi-Oh!
They talk and have cards.
I think we better end the episode before someone else gets mad at us. Another fandom.
To visit our sponsors who make this podcast possible, please visit gamingbuzz.com/sponsors. If you like this episode, share it on Facebook and Twitter, or submit a show review. You can do so by visiting gamingbuzz.com/11. Gaming Buzz is a proud member of Newsmakers Podcast Network, an ever-growing network of podcasts covering many topics. Check them out at npcn.tv.
And finally, we have a bit of news. We're recording this episode a bit in advance, so I'm not sure if it'll be launched by the time this episode comes out. But Gaming Buzz is going to have its very own app for Android and iOS. And I'm really excited about it, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Oh, it's going to be really cool. On your phone, you're going to be able to, with a nice and convenient app, keep up to date with episodes and be able to listen to them via YouTube, and it'll be really cool. And it's not quite finished, but we're getting really close. Be sure to check out gamingbuzz.com when you listen to this episode to see if our app is available yet. We've been putting a lot of work into it, and we're really excited to share that with our listeners. And as always, I'm Jacob.
I'm Darien.
And I'm Christian.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Gaming Buzz. New episodes can be found on gamingbuzz.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.